Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm going to do a talk about operational security for us. Everyone in this room probably does it for organizations, but we don't do it very well for ourselves. And we can't trust industry and government to do it because either they can't or they won't. It is what it is. So who am I? I came from the world of software development. Now I do security work for companies and do other things. I play guitar, parent, ski, etc. Okay, why am I here talking about this? This isn't a talk that I found because it was something I was passionate about. It's a talk that found me because I kept getting letters saying that I'd been part of yet another breach. I was part of the Anthem breach, got that twice from two different employers, no doubt. OPM, which if anybody was in part of the OPM breach, there is nothing left to be breached about you as a human being. They have it all. Yahoo, awesome. LinkedIn. I didn't get hacked on the other stuff, but I imagine that was very embarrassing for those people who did. So I'm here to tell you some things you can do to make your life a little safer. First, I want a quick show of hands. Who here has done a security freeze? All right. We have a handful of people who are not sitting ducks for getting their identity stolen. So if you get part of a hack, they send you a letter that says that they are going to offer you credit monitoring. Credit monitoring is terrible. All they do is promise to give you the essential telephone call that the barn's on fire, but the barn's already on fire. You know, your house is on fire. It's too late, too little, too late. And they're not really liable. So if you get your identity stolen, too bad. They're not going to help you with it. So there's limited liability. And researching identity theft came up with some really astounding number of hours because companies don't make it their business model to help you deal with identity theft. They make it their business model to harass you because they think you owe them money. So goal here is to stay out of trouble. Okay. So I thought about how to approach this, and I figured the best way to do it is pen test concepts, vulnerability assessment concepts. First thing you need to do is determine what the attack surface is, and we all have an attack surface. The internet knows all. There are companies who do nothing but collect data about you as individuals so they can resell it to advertisers, to people who are looking to open up credit in your name. So the goal here is to determine what does the internet know about me. The answer was a lot. But first, let's go with a cautionary tale. Don't be this guy. Okay? I should not know much about him except what I see on television or read about in the paper. So he registered a vanity domain. You can read it. If you can't, oh good, I put it up there. SeanSpicer.com. He's fixed this, but you type in the who is, and what do we have here? We have his home address. We have his email address. We have his phone number. And someone I know created this graphic because it's pretty awesome that you can find out this much information about him. The vice president's wife also registered a domain for something called towel charms. I don't know what that is. But anyway, you can look her up too. I believe she also has changed it to private. But if you just Google towel charms. So we're going to check our attack surface. First thing we're going to do is vanity searching. Open up a search engine, start looking for yourself. Look for your name, where you were born, social security number, even things that you think that should never be on the internet. Your social security number, for example, should never be on the internet. And then set up a Google search alert for those things. Because if anything shows up, if your social security number, for example, showed up on the internet, you'd like to know that. Make sure your domain registrations are private. People forget about that stuff. Man, sometimes you might have registered it 5, 10, 15 years ago, and you've long forgotten about what's on there. Aggregation websites. There are dozens of these companies, and they collect all kinds of information about you. Some of it is highly accurate. Some of it's wildly inaccurate. When I was doing it, it kept suggesting that my wife's name was Linda. My wife's name is not Linda. I don't know anyone by that name at the moment. When you find your information on aggregation websites, some of them make it very easy for you to opt out and remove your information. Some of them are terrible at it. The worst require you to mail them a photo ID. I'm sorry, I'm mailing my photo ID to anybody. That's just stupid. But you can remove a lot of this information. And when you do, you start seeing that you don't appear as often or at all. And that's kind of the goal. Social media. Everybody's doing social media, and every social media company is terrible at protecting you, the individual. Minimize what can be seen, and try to do the same for your family. I know that doesn't make you a very popular person at home when you try to convince loved ones that security is an important thing. So domain registrations, if you gotta use one that isn't private, just tie it to a P.O. box or something else. Get a P.O. box that you can use for any registration that you're not certain you trust. We walk around with cell phones in our pockets that contain everything about us, financial, who we know. If you've got email on it, it probably has all sorts of things about your employer, your personal life. And it's the one device that's going to be used for multi-factor authentication for most websites. Portable devices, access, cloud storage, and social media, email, financial. These are all huge, serious points of failure. The router you bought at Best Buy, chances are, is not configured for your safety. Google it. Look for what the vulnerabilities are and fix them. Close those dang ports that are open to the outside world. Delete Facebook from your phone. Good Lord, if you've ever read the terms of service, delete it. It can read everything you do. I'm not real wild about social media on phones in the first place because phones have all your information. Set a periodic reminder to go through the privacy settings. They change them every 2 or 3 months. If you wait a year, it could mean that for 9 months something was visible you didn't want to be visible. Maybe your phone number, maybe your email address. And then test often. When you're Googling yourself, also look at yourself, set the site to a particular thing. Like Google your name, site, LinkedIn.com. See what shows up. Make sure you're happy with what shows up. And remember, always, you are the product, not the customer. The next one might be pretty obvious, but really be careful when you log into things. And use a VPN if you don't trust a network. And be super careful about consuming everything from a single ecosystem. I know Apple and Google would very much like you to do that. The challenge with it is it becomes a single point of failure, where if your email address or account is compromised, they have access to virtually everything that's important to you. And if you want to look at some cautionary tales, just search for these 3 individuals who all had their lives pretty dang upended simply because somebody wanted their Twitter account. And the last reminder on computing is that a desktop, that antique of the past, is always more secure than a portable device because it isn't easy to steal. It doesn't have a microphone. It doesn't have a camera. It's stuck to the wall. It requires a power plug. And lastly, back everything up. I can't repeat that one enough. Store at least a backup of all your important stuff somewhere that isn't online. Don't trust cloud for everything. So, are we all feeling a little better? I'd like to give you all a few more things we can do. All right, implement a security freeze for all major credit bureaus. Credit is something that you only should be seeking a few minutes of the year. It shouldn't be something that is available 365 days, 24 hours a day to the entirety of planet Earth. If somebody does get your information and they open up an account in your name, you'll spend the next year or two trying to resolve that. Far better to simply put a freeze on your accounts. No one can open credit in your name. Not even you. You can open it when you need to. So I bought a car a year ago on the phone with my bank, told them it's going to get rejected, tell me which bureau it is, walk over to my computer, real quick, you go to the website, you put in a code, it comes back on, the car loan's approved, go back to the computer, log back in, turn it off. That's it. Real easy to get to get credit when you need it. Encrypt all the things. If it gets stolen, think about what your phone has on it, what your laptop has on it, what your tablet has on it. Encrypt it. Laptop basic safety, of course, is keep them closed, tape over the webcams, turn on the OS-based firewalls. It's amazing how many things ship with a firewall but not configured to actually run. And I love crowdsourced apps to get rid of spam calls. Mr. Number is freaking awesome. Went from getting 4 or 5 spam calls a day to none. Use unique email addresses for anonymous social media. You don't really want anonymous to tie back to you. Password stores. I love KeePass. There's others. Use them. The best password is one you don't know. Set it to the maximum entropy. 20 characters, all numbers, garbage characters, all of it. Install anti-theft devices on your mobile devices. Replace default phone apps with things that are more secure. I like Signal. And lastly, multi-factor authenticate all the things. If it has multi-factor authentication, please do it. There's no reason we should be living in a world where user ID and password are the only way to authenticate to things. Browsers. Go to Panopticlick. The EFF has this great tool that shows how unique your browser is, because that's what advertisers want. They want to know who you are. And there's all kinds of extensions that both block ads and also fuzz the results so that you appear to be somebody you are not. My favorite is the one that makes you look like you're on Windows XP, even if you're using another operating system. That's a pretty cool one. uBlock Origin is great for getting rid of ads. Privacy Badger is a nice tool to obfuscate who you are. And if you're really paranoid, there's a whole bunch of other ones. Self-destructing cookies is pretty interesting. Every time you leave a website, it gets rid of the cookies that were placed on your computer. But the goal here is to be a little more secure. Get a VoIP phone number. Use it for anything where you don't really trust something. Google Voice is one. There's a whole bunch of them. Alternate email addresses that are tied to the VoIP number so that you can start to create a new persona for yourself for higher risk situations. Use throwaway email addresses for low trust accounts, event registration, etc. That also cuts down on the spam. Get a VPN for low trust computing situations. That's a fantastic thing. If you're staying in a hotel, you're in a Starbucks or something like that, you can't trust their network. Heck, you don't even know if you're connected to their network. You might be connected to that guy who's sitting a few feet from you, who's man in the middling all the traffic. Travel. Travel's gotten really weird in the last couple of months, but I'll get to that in a minute. But you have to start thinking about security at borders now. You have to think about security from your own government, because they are asking for you to give them your devices so they can copy them. I can think of 100 reasons why that would be a really bad idea, and your employer probably wouldn't like it much either. So there's things you can do. One is use a phone and a laptop, particularly just for travel. Some companies even issue blank devices that you then configure when you get to your destination. YubiKey, alternate boot, you can use even a micro SD card to boot a laptop. So if they have your laptop and they open it up, all it's going to do is boot into an operating system that doesn't have any of your information on it. It's all being kept on the micro SD. And I got to get running a little short on time. Use a travel account, a cloud account for storage that you can access when you get to your destination rather than keeping it on the device that you travel with. I registered a domain to start storing all of this stuff because I couldn't find any one single location for information for yourself. There are a lot of websites that are designed for every aspect of organization security. I just couldn't find something that was useful for the individual. So I've got a bunch of things that I found that are helpful, and they're all on the website, which is opsec.solutions. And yes, that's a real top-level domain these days. Again, back to the security freeze. In Virginia, it's about $10 a piece unless you've already been hacked, in which case you need to supply a police report from your identity theft, which isn't really ideal. And it doesn't work for children, so if you got hacked, your kids are still unsafe. People can open accounts in their names. And it doesn't work in Michigan. I don't know why. And I've got a bunch of tutorials on how to remove your information from the internet. Personal security, there's a great book. It's written primarily for women in mind, but has a lot of great privacy tips just for everyone. Creating personas for yourself, so if you wanted to, in order to better remain anonymous on the internet. EFF has some great recent articles on what you can and cannot do as far as your crossing the border as regards your First and Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights, which is interesting. In a nutshell, your rights are awesome, but once you leave the United States, the Constitution no longer protects you. And it doesn't protect you when you're returning until you get through customs. Identity theft stories, because, man, when you read these stories about how somebody's entire life can be upended simply because a person got social engineered at help desk somewhere. All right, what still is a pain in the rear end? The government is really slow to move toward protection. Despite massive, rampant fraud, the IRS still hasn't figured out how to stop people from filing tax returns in your name and then sending the money to a place where you don't live. Mind-boggling. Voting records, property records, and things like that are public in most jurisdictions. So you remove your data from the internet and it's going to come right back because that's where they get it from. And then the weak link is always still humans, because humans can still be socially engineered, so they're not going to always protect you. And they may reset your password and give it to someone who is not you. And humans click on all the things. Does anybody have questions? Yes, in the back. Is it just a DC specific thing? Okay. You can't in Virginia. I do not know about other states. It still blows my mind that the IRS permits anybody to submit a tax return and they don't verify who you are. It just blows my mind. In the back? I'm not that paranoid. People who are more paranoid than me don't have Facebook accounts. I know people who work for highly secure customers.
So if you opt out of having a Facebook account altogether, someone else can claim you.
Yes, they can. That would be correct. So there's websites called NameCheck that will be on the website. That allows you to look at, you type in a single thing, you can determine some 70 or 90 social media websites and determine where that is being used. You can both register yourself, never use it so no one else can, not a bad idea, or you can see if anybody's trying to impersonate you. No, I haven't. Awesome. How do you spell his last name? Bazzell. Awesome. Okay, I'll do that. That is awesome advice. Thank you. Excellent. Public records that the government keeps, we'd have to convince Congress to do something about that. You can't lock that down. So if you own a house, you vote in many jurisdictions, those are public records. Virginia has it as well. That's a fascinating thing to do. If you're ever thinking about working for somebody or going into business with somebody, looking at their arrest record and their court case record, very interesting. You mean like a reputation defending type thing? I have not. I have read both good and bad things, but that they are, in general, if they can lower the bad information further down in a search so that it doesn't show up on page 1. It might show up dozens of pages down. I haven't used it, thankfully. Anybody else? $10. No, lifetime. That's it. And in some cases it's not. The big three are $10 each. But once you do it, nobody can open a trade line in your name. That would be correct. But your existing companies can access your credit. So if you own a house, you have home insurance, they run a credit check on you once a year. They can access it. Your bank can access your credit because you've already allowed them. Yes. $10. That's it. $10. It's the biggest no-brainer. If you don't remember anything else I told you, credit freeze, $10. Just do it. I think it's free. The time I've done it. Okay. And again, how many times in your life do you ever apply for credit? It's not very often. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. I hope it was useful.